first of all, it's a pleasure to be here and surrounded by so many professionals I admire so much. And also, I'm going to be the one doing the talk quite alone here, because we only have 35 minutes, and if Pablo and I have to start talking one on top of the other, it could be absolute chaos. But Pablo is there. Pablo, please stand up and say hello to everyone. Yeah? And what I'm going to try to do here is to add some light to what we do, because we do a lot of stuff. This is just an example of the things we do. And our name, it's Hamill Industries. We actually never use our names for anything, just we sign everything as Hamill Industries. And you know, like we sound like we have a company that are aeronautic suppliers, that we build like big stuff for trains or stuff like this, but we do actually work in the field of the creativity. And what we do is to work a lot in the intersection between visual arts, technology, and design as well, and music. So our journey actually started a few years ago. Well, only 4 years ago, I have to say, and this is the studio. It's only 2 of us. Pablo and I are a family, we are a couple. And we actually, this is our uniform. Like, we spend most of the time with these suits because we actually have a workshop and we build many stuff and we handcraft many stuff. So we are not fancy dressed, but like this all the time. So we like to build things. We like to have things that move and mix and spin and film it and like put it all the way around and play with the stuff we have in the studio. Pablo has been working before he was in Hamill in the motion graphics, doing lots of experimental motion graphic videos. So he actually had a very cool workshop to work with. He had tools to work with wood, he had tools to move motors, and he was collecting, like, for years and years of working, like, so many stuff. Like, we don't throw anything to the garbage. This is a big problem we have because the studio is not very big, but we actually use everything. So we started to work together. I was lying when I said that it was only the 2 of us because we also have a dog. This is Tinta. She is taking care now of the studio, so if someone writes and gets like really odd messages, it's her fault, okay? So we, as I said, we like to create like audiovisual inventions and installations and mix stuff. And our practice before we started Hamill, it was working for other companies. I was working creating spectacles and shows in the cultural environment in Barcelona. Pablo was doing this experimental motion graphics. But we were very tired of sitting in front of the computer all the time. We wanted to expand our practice out of the computer, out of the screen, and start doing all the stuff. So to define a little bit what we do, is I will put it in these words because it's a bit complicated. What we do like is to create all these visions that we have in our head, and we design them digitally. We use 4D tools, we use Illustrator, we use animation, we use regular post-production processes. But we imagine this like in the digital world, but what we do is we build it in the reality. We make it tangible, because what we like is to make our visions real and make this an experience, so people can experience what we imagine, no? And communicate our stuff, our things. And there is a lot of like handcraft involved in those stuff. So I'm going to start with the first project we did, and that's actually the project that brought us together. I mean, Pablo and I, we wanted to work together, but we didn't know what we wanted to do, you know? We still haven't figured out what was the formula. And I don't know if you know the musician and composer and DJ Floating Points from the UK. And he was in Barcelona playing and DJing one night, and we happened to have friends in common, and the studio is just in front of a big club in Barcelona. If you've been there, probably you have been in this club. It's called Rasmatas. So we were there, and we were hanging out, and at that moment, Pablo had an invention going on, some prototypes of a light paint machine. I will go into that now in 1 minute. He saw this, and he was like, wow, I really like this, and I'm actually writing my first album, and I wanted someone to do a music video, and I really like, to have something technical, because this guy actually makes electronic music, but it's very jazzy, with lots of textures, and he uses a lot of analog instruments. He uses synthesizers. He uses, like this kind of instruments, so he's really into it, no? So we thought, OK, so let's try this prototype that Pablo is doing. Let's work together, and let's start this adventure and see how it goes. So we started to design. We wanted to do this light paint and make this light paint with our own animations. So what Pablo did was, these are like the first results, the first test that we created. It was very simple, the solution, although it had some problems of execution. But can you imagine like a 3D printer? But instead of printing, we attach a LED to the LED to the bottom. So we could move this LED, as a 3D printer does, with coordinates in space. So with this solution, we realized that we could create our own animations in 4D, translate this with a plugin that we invented as well, as we were doing. And I'm going to put the making of behind me, because I won't have time to show it. The CNC machine could take frame by frame and draw frame by frame everything. And what we had to do was control all the events that were happening in order to automatize the process, so we could draw anything we wanted. So this is the LED attached. This is our friend Nathan. We work a lot with friends. Like, we're a family, so we extend this family to friends all the time. So we had a computer that would centralize all the events. One was moving the LED, and the other was the exposure of the camera, because obviously you need to paint like some traces of light, so you need the camera to be exposing for a long time. And that's our studio. It was very cold. That was in winter. And Pablo already had a mustache here, I think. So once we had everything centralized, we could also centralize things like lights or smoke machines and stuff like this. So we could coordinate everything to make it look the way we wanted to make it look. And because we are very, we are super suicidal. Like, this is maybe our mantra: say yes to everything. Yes, yes, everything's a good idea. Yes, yes, yes. So instead of shooting in a studio, we decided to go to the other side of Spain to make the shooting much more complicated than it actually was, because for one shot, it would take almost like 8 hours. And obviously, because it was light, we had to make it happen at night. So we only had 7 usable hours at night, and we were in the middle of these mines that are abandoned now, and we had to go there. It was night. It was very deadly. We survived it, though. And we only had like 5 days to do it. So obviously, 5 days and 7 hours every day was not enough to shoot all the frames we had to shoot. Then when we come back, we had to improvise and kind of reproduce the set that we filmed in our own studio. So with the help of lots of friends and plant designers and Pablo's humor, we could go on. So we spent 3 months shooting the music video. And this is the result. No, it was a very good experiment, and it was like this collectively effort to make a story out of light, in which the light was somehow the main character, but also the thing that was enabling the technique to happen. So we found out that there was a very interesting connection between the technologies you can work, which can be like really simple results sometimes, and the stories you want to tell. So we kind of understood that it was a very interesting way to approach our projects. Tell stories around technology and through technology, but also understand this technology to tell these stories. So this went very well. After like these 3 months of absolutely like effort and non-sleeping and actually figuring out what the hell we were doing, we got to go on holidays. And we were like, okay, so our experience, we were not even signing this as Hamill Industries at that point, because we didn't know that was something that we were going to do for the rest of the 4 years that we had in front of us. So we were with Tinta, which, by the way, means ink, obviously by the color of her hair. And we were relaxing, and she was making holes on the beach, and then we got a message. The message was from Floating Points, Sam, and he was very happy with the result we had. Like, we got some prizes, like the video was showcased in lots of magazines. And he said, hey guys, I have to go to New York with the whole band and on a full orchestra, and it's New York. Can we do something special for the New York event? Like, can we invent something out of this imaginary that you have already created, but we have to do it live? We need this for a shooting. And without thinking, we said, yes, we go. When is this happening? In 1 month. So we were like, fuck, sorry, I can't say that. So we were like, okay, let's make it happen, pack our things, go back to the studio, what can we do? Because if we want to reproduce this idea of light and this imaginary, it's like we had to make this question, no? How do we transform this light paint technique in something that can be audio reactive and can happen live? Obviously, to make this happen in a video, you have long exposure, but you cannot go to the audience and long exposure their eyes, so we create this, obviously. So we had to find a formula, and Pablo has, like, in his head, like, all these inventions in his head, and he really researches. I think he actually has finished internet, like, a couple of times, and he was like, yeah, I know something. So he came back to me, with the answer, no? And we were like, okay, we need to find something in which we can expand light in time. So he came back with this video. And it was like super messy, super chaotic. It's like, yeah, that's light expanded in time. We need to do this. So we started to make our own processes and figuring out what was going on behind this video. And we found out that he was using this guy was using a material that was light reactive. So we partnered up with a company. I still don't know how we managed to do this in a month. We partnered up with a company to sell some prototypes of like textiles to see what we could do. So we were trying to prototype stuff and a moving light that was doing like all the drawings we were doing. And it was like super complicated because you cannot go on stage with a full orchestra with people that has, with something that moves and can actually kill someone. We cannot go with a giant light machine or something like this. But the solution was very easy. The solution was called laser projector. And it was really cool because then we started to say, oh, then we can build a screen and it can have a circle, and inside this circle we can draw our stuff, and we can paint light traces, and we can have the band here, the band there. Those are very like raw sketches I did at the beginning. So we had the solution. So what we did is create in 3D some kind of shapes that then we transform it through a plugin and like a couple of softwares that we somehow managed to, like reprogram. We transform our animations to laser language, so we could project our animations. We did some research based already on these mathematical forms and Lissajous curves and like gravitational things, because the idea here was not to project an image. The idea here was to trace and paint an image, because this surface has it's time reactive. So at the beginning it reacts, it's very shiny, but you lose it. But the beautiful thing of it is that you can leave traces of light that are going to be erased maybe in 5, 6, 7 minutes. So we wanted to use that. And we also find out that we could use the light beam to create like an interesting, like architectural approach in the stage, because there's no one singing in this band. Everything is instruments. So We could somehow make this to be the center of the stage, and we can have, like this light column in the middle of the stage that would represent somehow the voice. And this is actually the result. I'm gonna talk on the top of it because I don't have much time. So as you see, like we designed each song was represented by a drawing, and each part of this drawing represented a part of this music or a sound that was being played. So the beautiful thing of it is that after the live, each song would be represented by a drawing that was being painted live while the song was going on, but you could see it at the end that you had this map of sounds visible there that actually represented the song. This is in Pitchfork Paris, because basically, this is not New York. This is Pitchfork Paris because, Pitchfork Festival, sorry. Because it was very successful when we went to New York. Floating Points was very happy with the invention, and he decided to take us on tour for the rest of the 2 years we had in front of us. So we were like, okay, so we not only have to do this, but we have to make it to go on tour for 2 years around the world, which is quite challenging. We've learned a lot about processes and cases in this project. So eventually, this became also an installation that we have separate from the band, and we are still, researching ways to reproduce the music to make it even more audio reactive and stuff like this. But it was so nice to see, the music become something, to have the sound being tangible and being beautiful, that we were super excited. I mean, it was super excited. So in this tour around the world, we visit many places. We've been in the US, we've been in Japan, we've been in Europe, we've been in Hong Kong as well. And in one of the tours, Floating Points took us to the Mojave Desert in Joshua Tree in the United States. And the band had to rehearse. And at that moment, obviously, it's a desert, there's a lot of light, and I have a laser and a reactive screen that only works with darkness. So I cannot do anything while they are rehearsing in the desert. I was just wandering around. And while they were playing, I had this Stendhal syndrome because it was super nice. I was going around this place, there was nothing in kilometers around. And suddenly I was listening to this music that they were playing, but the shapes of the mountains were shaping the sound in so many different ways that all the songs sound super different. So we took, and because we cannot stay still and we always have to do things, and I was 5 days here, what can I do? I cannot be just sitting here. I invited a couple of friends, and in 2 days, we actually shot a film. This film, it was shot in 3 days in the desert. And with Sam, when shooting everything, we didn't know what we were doing. Can you bring up the volume? But, we just recorded everything because we realized that the sound was being shaped. And Floating Points was really into the idea to experiment with that. So we actually create a visual album of 30 minutes. And, it's been in different festivals. It's been great. It was a great experience. And even though we didn't know what we actually were doing, somehow we saw that there was something very interesting, very physical happening again with the sound. So we kind of realized that the sound was becoming one of our key, one of the key aspects that we would like to research through technology. And we kind of made it our, our symbol somehow. So we did this film and we continued touring, and obviously, I guess we want to, it was called Reflections, and somehow we found it so interesting that maybe in the future we do another Reflections, maybe Reflections Goa, why not? Or Reflections, I don't know. Let's see. That would be great, right? In the middle of this, we're touring every weekend or for a month, whatever, we are not in the studio. But a festival in Barcelona called Mira approached us and told us, hey guys, do you want to do, we have a space in this building in which we are doing the festival. Do you guys want to do something? Because we are watching what you're doing and it's interesting and we want to encourage people of the city, to be part of this. And we're like, yeah, okay, how much do you have? I'm not gonna say the money they had because it was ridiculous, but we were like, yeah, the space is amazing, let's do something. How many time do we have? And this time was like, you have 3 weeks. It's like, okay, 3 weeks, what can we do? And obviously, because we make our lives always super complicated, we were like, well, okay, why don't we build a structure that it's like 3 meters per 3 meters wide? We couldn't do something smaller, no. We had to do like something really, really big. So we came up with this installation. That's our studio as well. The measures, and we use like a second-hand plastic pool to create like a sort of smoke ring machine. It was like an octagonal retrofuturistic like Stargate that would blow these smoke rings through the images are really bad because we didn't have time to plan any shooting, and our friends that were in the festival, they were drunk, so they got us these images that are not very useful. But I mean, you can have an idea of the room and everything. So we tried techniques. We used this second-hand plastic tool to be able to push everything with motors. Everything was reactive to the music. And there was something super beautiful happening here, which was that we had like a physical reaction that would touch the bodies. We did not only have lights, but we have like this immersive space and this, blow of air that would, like be ejected against people. And people sometimes would come into the room and would just, sit and lie on the floor just wondering how the smoke rig was going with the lights. And some people, like one day, they started to queue in front of it because they wanted to feel the air like going against their bodies. It was really, really beautiful to see how people, can enjoy your ideas in many, many different ways. And I have to be very quick. In the middle of that, we did a commercial project that was a nightmare, but here it is. I'm not going to talk about this because I don't have time. But after doing Vortex, as in the middle of this touring chaos we realized what I said before, that we were all the time working with sound, working around the idea of sound visualization, and around the idea to make sound tangible and physical. But it was always a personal interpretation, because it was always like our own designs or our own drawings through music, etc. And at some point, we were like, OK, and actually, instead of making our own interpretation, I think we need to know how sound looks like. Like, can we find a way to see how it looks like, how it is without intervention? And obviously, we went back to the oscilloscopes. And at that point, Sam Floating Points was starting a solo show, and he was also interested in helping us to develop this kind of stuff. So we went into Math Wiggler. Do you know Math Wiggler? It's a really amazing tool for jigs. Like if you really want to get information about particular technologies or how to use stuff, you have to really dig into that world. It's very interesting. So we discovered that there was a way to make an oscilloscope without being a regular oscilloscope, because oscilloscopes create images this small and are green, and we were sick of the green color because we were touring with this glowing green screen for 2.5 years, and we didn't want green. We want something that has resolution and it's not green. So actually, we found this. So I guess people would be expecting super fancy new technology. We found a console called Vectrex from the 80s that works as an oscilloscope if you hack it. So we hack it so we could put audio through it. And it's amazing. It creates really, really amazing things. But obviously, sound looks super chaotic and super ugly. So it was like, okay, come on, how we can challenge this without losing the essence? And because we're very lucky, and Floating Points was really into it, and he has these instruments that create with the synthesizers this, this audio that are very clean, and these audio signals, pure audio signals. We did jams. We started to create sounds to see what we could achieve. And we could achieve things like this, which looks very, very good. So we wanted more control. So we decided, yeah, but I want to have more control. I want to be able to do my own drawings. And we partnered up with Jocabola, and we are still designing a very easy software to introduce 3D animations in it. And then this could be translated into an oscilloscope or something like this. We are still working on it. All what we do, all the research we do, it's always available for everyone, because Pablo and I were super self-taught. We rely on the idea of free information. So everything we research, everything is documented, everything is there for the world. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you can go there. Um, Thank you. So it has his tricks, because it's not easy for the vectors to draw certain things, but we could start like drawing this kind of stuff. And it's really cool to have images that are actually audio files. This is an audio file. This is stored as an audio file. So for a live performance, this is actually very cool, because you don't need this, sorry to say that, these shitty BJ programs live. We hate that. It's like, I don't know who made that, but it's not for a human mind. It's all around the place. It's designers. You have to do something with those things, please, you know? We could do a live show with visuals. Everything it was pure sound. So the only thing we needed was a GoPro that filmed the Vectrex and a sound card that will filter all the sounds. So it was really cool, because we went, again, on tour with Sam. We kind of had fun, so that's why we said yes again. And we did his new solo show. And what we did was, with the sound card and an audio software, we would mix just audio, so he could actually interfere in the images and mix his audio with our audio, or sometimes it was just straight his pure audio, and draw whatever he wanted. And that was really cool, because every performance was super different. And things like this happen. At some point, he was creating his own visuals live. Like, nobody was interfering, and he wanted to see what was happening, because every time he was playing the bugle or an instrument, instead of looking at the audience or like his instruments, he would look at the screen and turn his head to see what was going on, because he wanted to make it look good. So he was playing music to make it look good. It was really cool. That's another situation in which he was like, okay, what's going on now? So the tour finishes. In the middle, we have done like some commercial work. I want to say this one. This one we did it with Espada y Santa Cruz. They were here last year, and they are really, really cool. They do really cool things, and this work we did together for Adidas. Well, in the middle of this crazy, like, as you may imagine, we haven't rested like in the last 4 years. Like, that's the first time we can get some rest, I think, in the last 4 years, to be honest. And we also were invited to do an installation. We name it Chrysalis, and because we love spinning themes and light and reflections and music, we decided to create like this, you know, like, it was inspired in the seashells and the resonance of the seashells, so it will fold, it will move, everything reacting to the music, and produce this light spectacle. I cannot go into it because I don't have time, but this is it. So while we were doing this, Sonar Festival. Do you know Sonar Festival? Have you been? Sonar Festival is really cool. It's in Barcelona. Well, it's everywhere in the world. But he called us and said, hey, guys, I see what you're doing. We think it's very interesting, and I invite you to do something. And we were thinking, oh, OK, let's do an installation. And they were like, no, 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 we invite you to do a show. It's like, what? We don't do shows for ourselves, you know? Like, we're just there, we put images, we do. And they were like, no, no, but you have to do a tech show. And we're like, yes, let's do it. Let's become musicians this time. Why not? So this is us in the program of Sonar Festival, which was a really nice recognition. And it's a really cool festival, and the people behind it, it's super cool. So we created a whole performance based on the Vectrex invention. And we became musicians this time. And this is a little bit of we did with Shelley, who helps us sometimes with programming. And we wanted to invite him as well to do this. And there's like tiny videos we did to promote the show. The interesting thing this time is that all that you hear is what you see, and all that you see is what you hear. So there is no one is faking nothing. This is exactly how this sounds. This is exactly what it does. This is a null capsule. You might recognize what is in it. Do you recognize the fish from Silhouettes? So we managed to do it, and actually that's how it sounds. This is this deep sound, like Tibetan. I don't know. It's really cool. Well, so at this point for us it was the end of a cycle, because we've been touring and we wanted to breathe a little bit to think about what we were doing, where we were going, and actually we realized that our formula was giving results and that we were able to expand our creativity in many solutions that we never expected, you know. So by that time, floating points was, we have to thank a lot our practice to floating points because we started like a really cool collaboration, and that's why it's very important to be open for any kinds of collaborations and artists, and you never know what is going to happen. So by this time, floating points was creating a new album. Good thing because we were not touring, so we could focus on other stuff. And he said that this time he wanted us to be involved in the whole visual identity, like in the creation of the album, music videos, and live shows. And that's actually where we are now in this moment. So we wanted to bring, we wanted to open now like a new set of, references, a new set of images, because the album was also very different, very, 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 very different than the first one. This one was more electronic, but has a lot of bright organic textures. It's very warm, and it uses this synthesis, but it's like a journey, very spacey. It's really cool. So we wanted to merge this stuff, and we thought, okay, we want to work with something that is more organic, because even though it's electronic, we want to work with something that it's natural, that it's organic, because it sounds like this. So the first thing we thought about was like, okay, let's work with water. But water was a bit boring, because it lacked textures, at least how we approach it. So we started to work with bubbles. We are still working with bubbles. So we started to have reactions, and we find out like they have like these really crazy textures that can react to the music physically in a super simple way, it's super simple. So we started to get like, actually this machine, we are developing this right now because we want to put it in the live show. We want to go with a musician and put the machine there and say, bye, perform, we are on it. And we got this kind of images, which are super interesting, and it's amazing. A bubble. Oh, sorry. Ooh, sorry. So other stuff like experimenting with liquids. Can you imagine now we will have to go with lots of soap in our pelly case instead of, instruments. Anyway, so at the same time we had all these shapes, and we were like, wow, that's amazing, and we can control this, but we lack a sense of, like reality, nostalgia, organic, natural things. Why don't we experiment with the idea of liquefying real things, liquefying nature? We have to say that Pablo and I, we love nature. Actually have an hydroponic station in our house made out of an old fridge. We can show you pictures of that later. So we decided to apply this idea of liquefying things to plants and textures. So we built, the slit scan technique used in 2001 Space Odyssey, like to create the tunnels. And because we like a lot to work, like with these really analogical things, we kind of create our own slit scan machine. So we would move it and create like these real displacements on time, making calculations on how big it had to be, to have like enough resolution. And we were working with analog material, we were working with digital material, and this happened. We made some experiments. I have to say, we are not graphic designers. I studied audiovisual communication, Pablo comes from the motion graphics, but we kind of started to create layouts, like how we could combine these two worlds, right? Finally, we gave lots of options to them, and finally what they decide to get is with this one. It's really nice. It wasn't our favorite, but it's very nice. But like with this and with all these experiments, we have already developed a very, very interesting imaginary. And we wanted this imaginary to be part of the whole project of floating points, not only the liquid bubbles. So we had the commission now to create the music video that will set all the visual world of the new album. And we wanted to recreate in this music video all these experiments that we have done with music, recreate the idea of, like this feeling of cosmic vertigo that drags you into a world that it's different, that it's moving, that it's shaping, but it's super organic, but it's electronic, And we wanted to bring to the surface like the underlying beauty of this stuff. So this is the title of the song. And what we decided was to create like a temporal voyage through this musical journey and through the evolution of plants. Like imagine being in a world in which there is no human intervention, there's only plants and just life, goes and make their stuff. So we actually, and we didn't want to lose the idea and the spirit that we have with the first music video. We didn't want CGI. We wanted to handcraft the stuff in our studio. We wanted to show and put the organic textures that we would create there and be able to shoot it in our studio as well and make things grow in our studio and build our own stuff. So we kind of used the same spirit, and we created then this planetary bloom, which is our last project. Yeah, I have to leave it here. I have like a few, can I say like very, very fast a couple of things? Oh no, it's fine, it's fine. We can talk about this kind of stuff, but thank you very much.